Hey everybody, it's Wade here, and you're listening to the Rules of Acquisition, and this is that remix stuff where we go in and we're listening to ourselves, and then we're talking about it later. But I guess you might know that. I guess this is an intro. All right, well, anyways, I'll be back at the end of this old podcast talking about it, and you know the drill. Anyways, see you on the back end. Enjoy the show.
Ractachinos. Trillion legal precedents. Oh yeah. The bocce ball of order. O'Brien's rollover vacation time. Oh yeah. Illicit affairs in the midst of alien revolutions. Oh yeah. It's time for the rules of acquisition.
Hello and welcome to the Rules of Acquisition, a podcast where we will be going through every single episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'm not even sure if I'm going to say it's the best TV show of anything yet. It's the best. And if you don't agree with us, then you're wrong. Yeah, with me, as always, is James Nolan.
Hey, guys.
And Hugh Crawford.
Hey, guys. How we doing?
I'm doing well. And I'm Wade Bowen.
Hey, Wade.
Okay, so tonight we're talking about, is this the 7th episode?
Yeah. This is the 7th episode. It's called Dax. It aired on February 14th on 1993, Valentine's Day, ironically.
Oh.
The IMDb description starts off, sins of the host indeed, as Jadzia Dax is accused of a murder her previous host, Curzon, supposedly committed. This was written by Star Trek legend DC Fontana and Star Trek writer Peter Allen Fields.
Not legend, Peter Allen Fields.
Right. Well, not yet. I mean, Star Trek legacy isn't written in stone yet. Peter still has time.
Sure. Yeah, no spoilers.
We're rooting for you, Pete.
He might.
So this is finally, after 7 episodes, we're finally getting a Dax episode. And this one also might as well be called The Long Black Veil, because it's the same... It's the exact same plot of the Lefty Frizzell song, The Long Black Veil.
I thought of that.
Did you think about that too?
Yes. I know it primarily as a Johnny Cash song, but yes. Yes.
So do I, yeah. Anyway, what do you guys think of this episode?
I thought, finally an episode about ideas.
Yes.
Right.
But they don't answer them, which is the most obnoxious thing in the world to me. The ending of this episode... I just want to punch it.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's the first episode they really have about ideas. You have a complicated character that you've introduced already. So let's explore her complication and implication and identity. And they do all of this work and they ask all of the questions. It gets you right up to the case. And then they detangle it with just some bullshit, which is fine, but you could have answered the question and then detangled it with bullshit.
Sure.
I don't think because they're not asking a great question of the universe. They're asking a legal question. How should the law sort of approach a character like Dax? And they get you right up there, and then they're like, "Oh, stop the court! We don't have to answer that question in this episode."
Oh yeah. Okay, that is maybe a bit of a cop out.
Somebody literally walks in when they're about to answer that question and says, it's not possible.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a cop out. They kind of painted themselves into a corner and took the easy way out. This episode opens up with voiceover from Cisco explaining that Chief O'Brien is back on Earth celebrating Keiko's mom's 100th birthday, and then explains that the crew is trying to keep the ship from falling apart without him. And then immediately it cuts to two crew members just sitting there drinking Ractachinos, not actually doing any sort of work whatsoever.
Yeah.
You guys enjoyed the first appearance of the Ractachino?
Ractachino. I actually looked up a recipe on a Hugh's bidding, and there actually is one in the Star Trek cookbook, and it sounds like coffee.
Yeah, it's a cappuccino, right? Right?
Yeah. So is this supposed to be like an attempt by them? Because I think this is concurrent with Friends, right? Are they trying to like sort of create like a Central Perk type,
Quarks' Central Perk.
so that they can all kind of go, just hang out at your. Because you remember back in the 90s, hanging out at coffee shops was,
right.
Now they're like work offices, but back then it was where you go and talk about Jim Jarmusch movies, what cool people in the East Coast do. And I think they were.
You think that was some sort of attempt at like tapping into the youth culture?
Yeah.
Some like ham-fisted 90s way of trying to.
The early 90s zeitgeist for cappuccino.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the bat, Jadzia Dax is kidnapped by a bunch of bad guys in power gloves. Did you guys notice that?
I got those ugly ass gloves, yes.
Right. And Julian is completely useless to like thwarting them. And then they have the communicator issue where they try to locate her via her communicator, and they took off the communicator. And this is something that sort of irritates me about the whole communicator thing. Why isn't there some sort of imagined biometrics for finding out where people are, right?
Hey, the pin communicator was cutting edge.
Yeah.
Back in the original Star Trek, they had cell phones that they flipped open.
Right.
So they're like, hey, look at us being all forward thinking, and okay, cell phones are not that cool anymore, but hey, we got a little pin that you can just put on. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, now it would just be biometrics.
Well, why don't they have biometrics? Because they have Curzon Dax's brainwaves on file that they can measure to Jadzia Dax brainwaves. That was established. So your biometric data storage is pretty on fleek. So like, why don't you set that up with your communicator?
I don't know. Civil rights.
Maybe.
It's NSA. You can't have my brainwaves being recorded at all times.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That could be it. And it could be like I guess it could be a personal liberty thing where it's like, Cisco goes to communicate to Bashir through his little communicator, and it turns out that he figures out that Bashir has space AIDS or something and sort of violates his medical privacy.
Or you could tell that he's having a bowel movement and it's a really bad time to talk to him.
Yes.
Like, I could see that your elevated heart rate, you're under a lot of stress right now. You're bearing down on something. Is this a bad time?
You have heightened heat levels coming from your GI tract.
Yeah, the Ractachino gets the bowels moving.
Especially early in the morning. Okay, so two things I noticed in this first scene. First off, they are still only characterizing Bashir by his trying to fuck a girl.
Right.
So every moment that we've had with Bashir that wasn't him facilitating a plot, 7 episodes in, there is no character that he likes to try and fuck girls in coffee shops. That is the only character development we have from Bashir at this point. So just want to go on record pointing that out.
We don't even know if he's that good of a doctor.
Nope.
At this point, he's just adequate.
Yeah, we have him freaking out when Garrick is giving a back massage. That's about it. But he's almost like weirded out because he feels like Garrick's hitting on him in the first scene is what it seems like.
Yeah, yes. We know 2 things. He likes to hit on girls at coffee shops, and he is uncomfortable around homoerotic spycraft. Another thing is...
But he loves homoerotic spycraft so much.
He does, yes. Okay, so I know that they're trying to sort of set up that O'Brien's good at his job, because everybody's got to be super geniuses at their job. But Dax has been in the Federation for probably 250 years?
Right.
Does she not? I mean, why is she flummoxed? Why can she do a better? Why is it because the whole thing's she's just so overwhelmed and confused by all of the stuff that she has to do that was O'Brien's duty. And I'm just, this would be the one time to show her as kick-ass.
Capable.
They're squandering that opportunity to show that she...
Yeah, there's got to be one lifetime of that trill that has been an engineer.
Yeah.
She's been, and her host has been to school for everything.
It is 250 years of institutional education.
Yeah, you're right. This whole episode, this is hey, we're excited to do a Dax episode, but she's not a very good actor. How about let's do a Dax episode where she doesn't do anything. We'll just talk about her.
We'll just have Cisco, our best actor, talk about her the whole show.
There's a few really great scenes in this. Cisco is very adept at using his political like looking at the political landscape with the extradition, rules for Bajor. He's very, you get to see him think on his feet really quickly.
You get to see him work that tractor beam.
You get to see Odo lean on Quark to get what he wants. That was a good scene. There's some good stuff going on here. This is also an obligation episode too. It's in the grand tradition of the Star Trek trial episode.
Yeah.
And with Captain Pike in the wheelchair and that
Captain
whole thing.
Pike in the wheelchair.
Or is
Data a human, or is a Data a life form episode?
Oh,
Yes.
That's the direct antecedent, probably.
I think that this is the best trial episode. It's an extradition trial. It's not an actual like trial criminal court.
They say that 5 times. This is a hearing, not a trial.
Yes.
Right.
Right. And I think this is the best one because it suits the station itself really well. Whereas, on the previous Enterprises, whenever they have to have a trial episode, it feels weird because it's an adventure show and they're just going to have the whole episode in a room.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is a whole series where every episode takes place in a room. So the trial episode, we're used to seeing out of Star Trek actually fits really well here. I think this is actually probably the best trial episode out of all of them.
Yeah, it's not even a Starfleet trial. It's a Bajoran extradition hearing.
Right.
So they can...
Bajor, who is marked by their use of bocce balls as gavels.
Yes.
Right. And that judge, it wasn't even a judge. What do you even call her?
She was a judge.
I think
we'll call her a judge.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll say she's a judge.
Yeah, she was fantastic. She was,
she was fantastic in this episode.
She's great.
Yeah.
I wanted to, yeah. Well, first off, this might be why A Man Alone sucked so bad. Because they already had a trial episode into the pile. So they're like, oh, we can't do a judgment at Nuremberg for Odo because we've got this Dax episode coming up. We've got our requisite trial episode.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So which is a shame because that episode blew. But this one was fun.
Still, I think the worst episode we have.
Babel is pretty bad. I don't know.
Yeah, Babel's bad.
I mean, I just listened.
Babel's the worst.
Yeah, we all had problems getting through Babel, it seemed like.
Yeah. I'm trying to find that actress and what else she's done.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know because that was another... was she done Star Trek before? Because it feels like this is the kind of thing where they were calling in an old favorite.
Yeah, let me...
She died in 2001. She'd just done like Matlock and stuff like that. She was, she's one of those character actresses that you see on just about everything in the 80s and 90s.
Sure. Yeah, no, I definitely recognized her. I thought it was interesting. At this time in television, you could still have old people that weren't sexy,
Right.
Like
Yeah.
now Star Trek would be on the WB or something and they'd have to have everybody be hot young people.
This role would be played by Celia Ward or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I remember where I remembered her. She's in the first season of Curb Your Enthusiasm as Mary Steenburgen's mom.
Oh yeah.
So, and I remember those episodes because they were my favorite of that season. So, yes. All right.
Yeah. Nowadays it would be like, oh, we've got this older woman playing this judge, but don't you just kind of want to fuck her or something? It's like, oh man, don't do that. Just have like old people, just have, gravitas.
Yes. Because the 50-year-old women or 40 and 50-year-old women would be on TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't be like Paget Brewster going for the grandma roles and everything lately.
Right, yeah.
But I had some points on some of the things we were talking about early on about the setup. I really did the show's got a really good energy and it moves really, really good. And I actually have to give them credit. I mean, like giving an episode that is about the character Dax without having to sort of deal with a lot of Terry Farrell. I think I'm going to make a larger case here. I think that it was good for the audience because you get to like the character without necessarily, or you get to be intrigued by the character without having to deal with her. And also it might be good for her because she gets to
she gets some backstory to figure out her character a little bit more.
She gets some backstory and maybe she can start hanging on to it. Because I don't remember her being a disaster in the later seasons.
Me neither. I actually like her.
Yeah, I like the character a lot. And I don't remember her being particularly a disaster. So I don't know. I think maybe this was like someone on staff was smart about this in putting this episode together and giving it all to Avery. I mean, there's a lot of Avery Brooks in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's a great Avery Brooks episode.
Yeah, I wrote my notes. He does the full Cisco press in this episode. Like every weird trait, all of the stern stuff, all the goofy stuff.
Yeah.
Only really one false note, and that's when he says, "If you were a man, I'd punch you."
Damn it! If you were still a man, I wrote that down as too. He was like, "Wow, that is the word." Yeah, that's that reading.
He was saddled by a bad line.
Yeah, and he was like,
yeah,
he must have noticed it was a bad line because he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna put any energy into this." Like,
yeah,
it's like, damn it, if you were still a man. It's like there's nothing behind that line. It's just kind of dead out of his mouth.
Yeah, and like it's really the only thing he really admits up until that point that she's any different really than just Curzon Dax is that he wouldn't hit her because she's like a girl.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
See, you know, I'm gonna spin this as it makes me like Avery Brooks more because he's like, that line's stupid and it's sexist.
Yeah.
I know I have to say it, but fuck it, I don't want to.
Yes.
I'm going to say it badly. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, oh, yeah, that was a decision because he knew it was a bad line.
Mm-hmm.
That's not because he was doing bad acting at that point.
Yeah,
he chose
to do that. Yes.
Later in the episode, we've got Odo going to actually do some investigating, and that's interesting because like, that's what he's good at. It's like the first time we actually see him as an investigator that didn't require him to like pose as a lamp.
Yes.
Right? Like before his investigative skills have just, him being, camouflaged as something else, which seems kind of, easy. Here he actually gets to apply his craft a little bit.
Yeah, because he's got a talent for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought Renee Auberjonois did a great job in this too, because like, I don't know, it felt like at first, like when Cisco's like, Odo, go to this planet, which he gets to really fast, but whatever.
Yes, I wrote that down. Because in Star Trek, they take weeks to get to places.
Right, but he's like, okay, I'll go. And then he's like, at first, Odo is like, hey, Dax probably killed this guy. I'm all about justice. Yeah, okay, I'll go. But it's like, oh, he probably did it. I say we send him off or whatever. But then once Odo's sense of justice, once he realizes that Dax is probably not guilty, he's like a man on the warpath. He's like, oh, I'm going to get this shit done. I mean, he's really good at his job. He's good at it.
Yeah, no, and it's really interesting to get that kind of characterization without it being like an Odo episode.
Yeah.
Like it was fun watching him when he's describing, like when he's talking about like Dax, who's been on the show, she's on his team. And then, like, she's accused of a crime, and all of a sudden, everything he says about her has stank on it.
Yeah.
And, like, his sense of justice and, like, Criminal Pursuit is so overbearing that it's actually, it's a joy. And he plays it so well that it's just such a joy to watch.
And that's one thing that the series that hasn't done very much so far, which is, give other characters a chance to shine in episodes that aren't about them. You know what I mean? It doesn't. It seems like almost like an accident. Like it's so infrequent that it seems almost accidental that we get a great Odo episode out of this one.
Except for Quark.
Yeah.
They still take their time every episode to get their Quark in.
Yeah, because at this point he's a supporting character, but he's also probably their favorite because he's fucking great.
Yeah.
So every writer probably has their favorite person there where they get excited about writing a Cisco episode or whatever. So they're like, oh, I'm going to make it all about this and throw in Quark because he's awesome, but he's the best character. So I need a supporting character. I'll just make it Quark because he's the best.
Yeah.
But they don't care about the other ones. But this one, even if maybe it was a Cisco Dax episode, but I don't know, it might be just a testament to the actors just doing a good job with it. I don't know.
I think I think you get the feeling because they're dealing with like DC Fontana, who was like a
that's true. Yeah.
not just a vet of Star Trek, but a vet of 70s and 80s television. Did everything from like Bonanza to $6 Million Man to like a lot of things. If you look at her IMDb page, she worked on a lot of different shit. And it seems to me that they were happy to like, ooh, look, a proper script, like we can work off of.
Yeah.
And and sort of like, let's just go to town on this. And it was even like things that I normally don't like, because I've said before, okay, that I don't like Kira. I think that they're giving Kira's having to convey a lot of personality and emotion and storyline through very sort of basic lines that she has.
Right. Was Kira in the? Was she in
Kira's
this episode?
in this episode, and
Yeah,
she's serviceable in two different scenes, and they're both.
Yeah, she's great in this.
They're both Cisco-focused scenes. She's background, but she has an interaction where she's been tasked to go find any case that involved trill criminal.
Oh, right.
Prosecutions.
Yeah.
And that's when she pushes him to like, do you want, what if I find out that trans trill criminals can be prosecuted? And they're like, he's like, then that's the wrong answer. And she's like, and she gives him like a look. She pushes him to the edge of like his rash to make the moral choice.
Yeah.
Then she does it when when she's the examiner of him on the stand, and she's serviceable. Mm-hmm. I mean, she does her. Everybody's doing their job in this episode.
Yeah. I mean, even when Terry Farrell at the end, she does have some actual acting in this episode where she's not just being quiet, and she does a good job.
Yeah,
like with her Cisco scenes, like that. I wish you were still a man. Damn it, she's doing a better job than he is in that instance.
Yes.
Yeah, it was some good stuff here. I think until the end, whenever they've raised all these questions until the end, and they shut the door on all that, this was like heading towards like A+ episode territory.
Yeah,
right?
My anger towards this episode is an elevated anger. It's that, you brought a higher form of television into this episode, so I'm going to hold. It's not like Babel, which I was just banging my head against, like, oh my god, everything about the storyline is so awful. I actually have like it gets to a point where I'm invested in how this is untangled and all of those sort of interesting ideas of self. They even bring like a little like 36 mystery into it. It's all super interesting. And then I'm just banging my head. They just took the easy way out.
Yeah.
And the one line at the end about how that guy died is the most infuriating thing I've ever heard in my life.
What, the Dax's friend and the war hero?
That he went.
I thought that was.
No, he went to the rebels. I don't understand it. He went to the rebels with a plan to betray the people of whatever country, whatever planet they were from.
Right.
And the rebels turned him down and killed him for offering it.
Yeah. Okay, the fact that the rebels killed him.
Yeah, when has that ever happened in history?
Yeah. Actually, yeah. That's true. They're like, oh, yeah. Hey, these rebels probably deserve to win. They're people of moral character and standing.
Even if it's an honor choice, where they were like, fuck you for betraying we don't do business with people who betray their own people. You still send him back because he's probably still going to gum the works for your opposition.
Yeah, you make it where the wife or Dax had to kill him.
Yeah,
if that's the secret they're keeping.
Yeah,
not that, because it's nice. I like the fact that Dax wasn't like a treason, and it wasn't the wife necessarily either. Even though Dax, it could have been a way that they were doing it if Dax was protecting her because Dax was still in love, still loved her, and Dax didn't want to betray her treason. That would have been an interesting way to do it. Yep. But I like the fact that both of them were she's protecting her friend and the wife is protecting her husband who they loved.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
If they had to be the one, or one of them had to be the one or them together had to be the one to actually kill the guy, and that's what they don't want to talk about. But yeah, it is a bit of a cop-out to say, oh yeah, and then the rebels killed him.
The rebels killed him.
Because it would have been awesome and worked in their favor had they not killed him.
Right.
It's like, oh, huh? How does that make sense?
Yeah, none about that makes sense. I had to watch that 3 times. I'm like, am I hearing this right? Because it's one line
right
at the end of the episode while they're walking to get a Racconcino. And I was like, that can't be the explanation. And it was. And I was like, that's stupid. Yeah. And I know that the show heavily implies that he's not just a traitor, but he was like abusive or something.
Do they? Yeah.
He doesn't. Yeah. He doesn't know his father. I knew the man. There's a way of like. Yeah. I mean, she put stank on it in a way that it was more than that. Basically, that he was just a brutish man.
Right. That's Right. Do they have to do that because to like say Dax wasn't a complete cad for sleeping with his wife because he was actually an asshole?
Sure.
But it was also his best friend, Curzon Dax's best friend, so who cares? Like,
Yeah, Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So yeah, but they don't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they don't need to make him a abusive person.
And isn't Dax?
I don't know.
Wasn't Dax there in his capacity as a Starfleet commander,
Probably.
or officer?
I'm not quite sure what Curzon Dax's actual Starfleet capacity was. Period. Like, I don't know what Curzon was in Starfleet exactly.
Yeah, it's not exactly clear. Maybe they bring that up later. They go into. There's more Curzon Dax later in the series. I just don't remember it very well.
Yeah, they talk about him more like he was like a contract.
Cisco was some sort of subordinate of his, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, and Cisco was like a
and now
like a lieutenant or he was. Yeah, I mean Curzon takes Cisco under his wing. That's established.
Right.
Oh shit! It just occurred to me. Did Curzon Dax die on the Borg ship?
No, I don't think so.
No.
It says he died 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. It could be that the writers maybe intended that, but I don't feel like they followed through.
Yeah,
on that idea.
I mean, because the idea is in the first episode. If they wanted to do that, they could have just put Curzon Dax on the ship, the Saratoga or whatever the hell it was called that got blown up. Like he could have just been on that ship.
Yeah, and they would have had to have bring up some kind of Cisco would need to bring it up. It's like, man, I lost my wife and I lost my best friend or something.
Yeah, like that could have been more fuel for his hatred of Picard.
Right. I think they go into how Curzon Dax died.
Okay.
Later in the series. And I don't think it has anything. I think it's a natural death. He lived a good life.
Okay.
I think.
I knew he was an old man, because he.
Yeah.
Actually, but what you're saying would have been more interesting if he had actually died and they were both suffering from like the same post-traumatic stress syndrome and having to deal with that. Do you know what? Like, seriously.
Yeah. No, that would have been really interesting.
If Jadzia Dax had died on that same Borg attack, that would have given her character a lot more interesting stuff to work with throughout this series.
Right.
Sure, yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah, they did the first episode and they had an arc and he's over the Borg thing and then they're just moving on because it's 1993 and you don't have character arcs in long-running TV shows.
Exactly, yeah.
Everything has to end. It's like a sitcom, basically. If it's not a soap opera, they have to start back from the status quo every time or something.
Yeah.
Which is partly why I find this show interesting because this is where that starts to bend a little bit as far as where we are in television.
Right.
Exactly. So, okay, why don't they explain it seems like to me, just from a dramatic standpoint and like something that would satisfy me, if at the end of the day, they laid out this case that I'm interested in, and at the end of the day, I felt, yes, as much as I don't want to see Dax get on trial for this, Cisco lost that argument. She is liable for the crimes committed by Curzon Dax. The show moved me to feel that way. And I feel like the little guy with the weird ears made really good points, even though he was, even though they were clearly playing him as a villain through the whole episode. And I think at the end they should have just said yes. And at that moment, everybody's resigned to the fact that Jadzia Dax is going to go on trial for treason and murder.
Yeah.
And then the mom could come in and everything can unravel. So that gets you out of like the consequences for that decision. But I felt like every fiber of this episode was moving to that moment. That moment where Cisco loses.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't win.
Yeah, I feel like probably in the writer's room, they're like, we're asking a big grand question. We want the audience to decide what the answer is. I feel like that's probably that's probably what their thinking was.
Yeah, but it isn't that grand.
It's not, but they probably thought they were asking really big ideas and like, oh, it's like our pro-life episode or something.
No, and it is a big.
We can't answer this.
Yeah, it is. It is a big idea because they're right. They created an interesting character with these conjoined races. And they should explore every possible sort of philosophical ramification to that. But I don't know. I think philosophy asks a lot of big questions.
Right.
And at the end of the day, they answered them. They might be wrong or they might be right. But if you read through Plato's Republic, Plato asks a lot of questions. But at the end of the day, he gives a lot of conscriptions to a lot of problems. He makes decisions, and he has a point of view, not just through the questions. And so I would have liked this show better if at the end, Bocce Ball Lady would just say, no, I'm convinced. You're Curzon Dax. Because the whole point, his last...
So basically, that's what you would change about this episode.
Yeah.
Though I do like at the end of the episode when they end the trial, Judge Lady is giving some pretty serious side eye to Jadzia.
Yes.
When the wife comes in, says, no, I was sleeping with him. That this judge, man, I don't know. It's like, I mean, we talked about sex positive and sex shaming Dax before. The judge is pretty sex shaming. She's like, you slut.
You slutty
like,
lady.
Right.
She just, that side eye, oh man, she's throwing some shade and I loved it.
She had a lot of great lines. God, she was great.
Wade, what would you change?
I mean, I would have, I don't know, I like this episode a lot. I would have maybe, I think what James's points were good. I would have maybe had Jadzia do a little bit more, maybe.
Right.
You would have cast a better actress as Jadzia.
No. I think when she does okay in this episode when she actually has lines.
She's fine.
No, I know exactly what I've done. I wrote at the end. I know it's 1993. You couldn't do this. They totally cop out when the wife comes up and is like, "Oh, Jadzia," and Jadzia's like, "Oh, I did love you" or something, and then they should have fucking made out or had a goodbye kiss. Not made out, that would have been too much.
Had a passionate moment.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
There's like, oh, she brushes the hair over her ear at the end, and I was like, no, they should kiss. They should kiss right now. They should do that.
You're so right.
Yeah.
But it's 1993. They can't have a lady kiss, especially with the young hot lady and old lady.
And not only that, but that feeds into the whole idea of, are they the same or are they different?
Exactly.
Her passion for Mama, the mom.
Yeah.
I didn't write any of Tasco or something. I didn't write their names.
I forget the name.
But anyway, so the mom, like, her passion for that would betray some sort of answer to the question of, is Jadzia different than Curzon?
Right. I would have had them say, I do still love you, other than the way they do it now is like, oh, I still remember Curzon Dax's feelings for you, so I remember those feelings, and that's what I'm still hung up on. I would say, no, I'm a different host, but I still have, you're right, those feelings for you, and then I would have had them kiss at the end.
You're right. All things being different. 2015, they kiss.
Yeah.
The writers write that in. And it's fun.
Totally.
Because it's intriguing to watch a pretty young woman have a lesbian kiss with a very old lady with ear things. Like, with temple gills.
Yeah.
And like, that would be really... You're right. That would, and that was what this show needed. You're right. Not just this episode, but that's what this show needs. This show needs some weird, and it gets weird, but it doesn't have any weird right now.
Yeah.
This show, and that would have.
It's never edgy.
Yeah, that would be edgy.
It's not even edgy.
Not just because it's a lesbian kiss. Yeah, it's almost boring now.
Right. It wouldn't be edgy now. It's not. But in 93, it would have been really out there, I guess.
It serves a character. It ties back into the theme. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one.
It would give your clamoring sci-fi, Star Trek, LBG community, LBGT community sort of something to like, and like it would, that you're right. Good call, Wade.
Yeah, so that's what I would do.
What's yours, Hugh?
Yeah.
Mine is, I hope you guys are sitting down for this. I would actually, I think it's a cop out.
They already kicked O'Brien out of this episode. What else do you want?
No, that's actually it. I think it's a cop out to not have O'Brien in it. I would actually find a way to put O'Brien in it.
Wow.
Because here's my thing. I don't like, and there was an episode where
he was filming Con Air.
That's fine. If that's what it is, that's fine. But it's weird whenever you don't have one of your main characters. You went with O'Brien as like a mainstay, and then 7 episodes in he can't show up for work. It's weird. I don't know. I didn't know he's filming Con Air. That's all I thought. I was like, I don't like the fact that O'Brien's not there. It's weird. That's what I would change.
Yeah, I think he's out of the next several episodes because he's filming Con Air or something. Con Air came out.
Oh man.
Maybe he's filming a movie. And I get the feeling that probably since it's early on, that might have been in his contract.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why they wrote him out. But to find a way to stick him in.
Yeah, they're trying they really want to keep him on. He's like, I'm doing movies now. They're like, okay, we'll work around you. And yeah, you're right, probably.
He could have called in at some point.
Right. So you're starting to warm up to O'Brien there a little bit, Hugh? You starting to like the guy a little bit? Or are you just like,
no, I just don't like...
Did you miss him?
I just don't like it's on principle that I don't like the fact that he's not there. It's weird whenever a character is not used for an entire episode. It bugs me whenever Jadzia in like the O'Brien episodes has one line.
Yes.
It makes me feel like they don't know how to utilize all the tools in their toolbox whenever you have characters missing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I think like on a show like, well, you don't want to see like O'Brien become Guinan. You know, because clearly Star Trek was working around Whoopi Goldberg's schedule. She was doing them a favor, or you know, and I,
right.
you know, and I get that she really wanted to be on the show because I've heard her talk about how Natalie Nichols was like really important to her. But not Natalie Nichols. What's her name?
Natalie Nichols.
Michelle Nichols.
Natalie? Who's Natalie?
Natalie Nichols was my boss at Barnes & Noble. Can we cut that up?
No.
I'm sorry. I can't believe I forgot that, James.
Shout out to Natalie Nichols if you're listening.
Michelle Nichols was important to her, so she wanted to be on Star Trek, but she's doing them a favor. She's an Oscar-winning actress who was in Star Trek early on. But
she's busy. She's busy.
He is a bigger role.
Yeah, she's busy dating Ted Danson at that point, right?
Yeah, I think maybe she was with Ted Danson.
Sorry, that has nothing to do with this. I'm sorry I brought up such gauche.
And instead of with Skeletor from Hammer Films' Masters of the Universe.
Never mind. No.
But no, I think that's yeah, I don't know how you deal with that. Or especially early on. Later on, I mean, I'm sure they played stronger arm with him because I know he's made other movies after this. So, But I do get a sense that over the course of these podcasts, Hugh's hatred of O'Brien will lessen to where eventually O'Brien will be his favorite character.
Yeah. Yeah, that's most of what I got for this episode. Let me see. Oh. I figure a lot of people are probably watching this on Netflix if they're watching Deep Space Nine at all. If you notice, the Netflix description is completely wrong. They got the wrong episode.
Oh, really?
They probably had it wrong forever because, you know, this has been up. Yeah, the Netflix description is some creepy Trill dude is watching Jadzia Dax on the station.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is completely wrong.
Yeah. She's, I guess, being watched by the people that kidnap her later, but that's a later episode with another Trill watching her. I remember that.
Yeah. Wait, isn't there an episode where the Trill who didn't get Dax comes after her?
Spoilers.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's like, oh, Netflix, get your shit together.
Yeah, Netflix. You fucking suck.
But that's it.
Speaking of, okay, one thing I noticed that I would say is that Facebook apparently doesn't exist in the 24th century. Because she was like, "Where's Curzon?" And I was like, "He's been dead for 2 years." That is something that she's never cyberstalked him on subspace Facebook before.
Yeah, well, Facebook, you know,
right.
MySpace didn't. I don't think they had Friendster at this time
I know.
in the real world.
It's just fun watching like technology. She would have totally been like on it, you know. She would have totally seen that, you know, on somebody. Some friend would have posted, "Curzon died, everybody."
Oh no! Yeah, and then
send your prayers up for Curzon or whatever. And,
yeah, that's part of the fun of Star Trek, I think, is seeing what they didn't get.
All the technology that doesn't exist.
Yeah. There's so much stuff that they're like, oh, when we have cell phones, like, or now the next thing with 3D printing, nobody shuts up about replicators, you know?
Yeah, that could actually be a whole section on the show. Is like a futures past sort of.
Yeah. Keep an eye out for that later on if there's anything.
A futures past occurrence. All right, no, I'm done. This episode was good. This was a good one.
Yeah, I like this one.
My irritations were of a higher level.
All right.
You've been listening to the Rules of Acquisition. You know, do all that stuff that you're supposed to do when you listen to things and like them.
Oh yeah, we have a Twitter and a Gmail. Get on with that.
Yeah. Do it.
Do it.
3 to beam out.
Yep.
3 to beam out. All right.
Forgot about that.
Please follow us on Twitter at Acquisition Pod.
No Kickers Podcasts actually.
Send us an email at rulesofacquisitionpodcast@gmail.com.
All right, hey everybody. So that was Dax. So just jumping in, the last time I did this, I think I went on for a while, didn't I? Well, maybe I will this time, maybe I won't. Anyways, let's get into Dax. Wow. These old episodes are fun to listen to. Not fun in that the audio is bad, but whatever. It is what it is, and it's getting a little bit better, I guess. If you've got like cheap, not fancy headphones on, I think it sounds a little bit better. Maybe don't listen to this in your stereophonic hi-fi systems, or listening to it however you want. But I'm happy that you're listening. Anyways, Dax, what happened in this thing? Things that get set up that it's just different listening to these old episodes. So the tone of everything that we have is so different. And we weren't as combative with each other. We might disagree, but I don't know. It's just a different tone to where we ended up, which, the world changes, we changed. So, I find it interesting, the whole journey or arc that we went on with the show, but that'll probably come up a lot more in these remixes. It's funny that this episode, we're pretty okay with it, like a little bit mixed. I wonder if we covered this in a later, at the end of the podcast, if we did the same episode, how much more vicious we might be to it because of just our changing standards or just wearing thin or whatever. But, this is okay, it's a fine enough Star Trek by the numbers. They're doing new things. I think we talk about, with the trial episode making sense. It's funny that I think you said, oh, this is finally they make sense, and then they're kind of forced in there. It's but at the same time, I think nobody's arguing that this is better than A Measure of a Man or anything from TNG in some ways, but in some ways it might fit the settings a little bit. DC Fontana is, legend. I think we still respect that. It is funny, for as much reverence as we end up having towards Peter Allen Fields. This is the first Peter Allen Fields mention, I think, that we had on the pod, and we're like, well, time has not said yet whether he's a legend of Star Trek. And, well, I think it has, actually. With the Inner Light or whatever, the TNG episodes that he worked on, and, and Duet and stuff on that, I think spoilers, if you're not listening to all of the ROA, at the end of it, I think we put him on the MVP All-Star list of our favorite writers, maybe period, for the show, right there at the top. Anyways, coffee culture and DS9. It's interesting. I miss the old unjaded coffee shops. I don't know. In the 90s, James and I, especially when we were in high school, hung out at a lot of coffee shops, and we make mention of the Friendsification and cappuccinos. And now it just feels like, I don't know, every Starbucks feels kind of, I live in Brooklyn. It's the land of coffee shops, so what the fuck am I talking about? But I don't know. It's just not the same as it was in the 90s, I guess. Oh, I'm getting nostalgic. Oh, the nostalgia is death. But, oh well. Oh, old people in this, I still like, Peter Allen Fields and DC Fontana aren't exactly young when they wrote this, but then also that Bjorn Judge or whatever, again, she's great. I think we're very nice to all the cast in this. This is the Dax episode. It's called Dax, and I guess we're setting the stage for how early on in the ROA we were pretty mean to Terry Farrell, which deserved or undeserved. She did seem a little bit over her head in the acting in this, but at least. I think we get extra vicious maybe later on. In this one, we'll call it out and say, oh, she's not, But then we're like, oh, but you know what? Good for them for giving her time to try to get the character around her by not giving her any actually acting lines to do much in this episode. So, I mean, we're still a bit nicer. The cop-out ending, again, I miss kind of the how would we fix it stuff. I think we nailed it in this episode. Yeah, that cop-out ending, I feel like we would have been a lot more brutal and angry about at the end of the podcast than we are in this one. We're like, well, this is a pretty good episode up until the end. Shanks it. It's like, okay, yeah. I wonder if how much we would have felt that later on. Curzon, we were like, what the hell is Curzon even in Starfleet? Oh, well, he's an ambassador to the Klingons, but I guess, well, there's a lot of things that the writers don't know about the show right now, and that's probably one of them. Oh, okay. Yeah, so many ideas for Dax squandered. And they are. There are a lot of things that the Dax, some of it kind of gets brought back up later on, especially like, say, in Rejoined. I feel like we even talk about some of the, like, Dax's relationship with the Widow, and presages a lot of stuff I think that we say later on in the Rejoined episode seasons later that does right. And then we didn't exactly have that in the back of our mind when we were doing this one. It's kind of interesting, the things that we wish this episode does. I actually, to an extent, later Dax episodes kind of do. Still a shame. I still like that they still think they should have made out, or maybe not even made out, and they should have kissed at the end of this. A chaste lesbian kiss would have been nice. But, it is what it is. Oh well, they at least they make up for it later. It does need more weird, like James said. And Natalie Nichols, I love those times when we get names wrong. It never gets old to me, but I think Natalie Nichols was my favorite one. And we get a Skeletor reference to the actor who played Skeletor in the He-Man Masters of the Universe movie. Frank Langella gets a stealth mention here as a reference to him having dated Whoopi Goldberg or something. That really made my day because of things that happened maybe at the beginning of season 2 of DS9, and becomes a recurring, for me anyway, it feels like a recurring thing that we come back to. Maybe not for you guys. Maybe it was only 5 times that we did it over the course of the whole pod. But that Skeletor reference, put a pin in that. And then segments that got left behind. What would we fix it? I missed that one. And James brings up, maybe we should do a futures past segment of technologies, that aren't in this future because they weren't in 1993 or whatever. But nope, maybe that would have been a nice segment to put in there, but I feel like it got mentioned here and never again. So yeah, comparing this to later episodes, and even the voiceover, the robot voice at the end, I've kind of cut it out a lot of these remakes because it feels kind of so just mean and to the fans, like where he's like, "What's wrong with you? Don't you have better things to do to listen to Star Trek podcasts?" I've cut that out of some of this because it just felt cruel. But then I was like, wait a minute, in these early episodes, it feels like a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke, and then now it feels like we've gotten kind of so mad at fandom in some ways that I don't know. I don't want to. Well, I love all of you for listening so much, and I don't want to insult you, but maybe we should all look at our attachment to fandoms and wonder, like, maybe we could just be attached to stories or whatnot. But hey, I mean, I don't want to tell y'all, hey, we're all sci-fi nerds here, right? So I mean, or not. But I guess do all this stuff. I will say that. What are we doing now other than these remixes? Well, we've been pretty hard at work reading books. And for the other Kickers of Elves podcast, we have the Hashish and Superiority Book Club. You probably may have heard us talk about that, or if you follow us or anything. Last season, we did Alan Moore's Jerusalem, which is a big, huge tome of a book that can really wear you out. Now, I finally picked a book, and I guess we can go ahead and release it. I'm going to tell you what it is. Maybe this is a sci-fi writer that you're more familiar with, or maybe you don't want to read all 1,200 plus pages of Jerusalem, but you're okay reading like 800, 900 pages of a book, because the new book for the Hashish and Superiority Book Club is, drumroll, Neil Stephenson's Fall or Dodge in Hell, which the writer of Snow Crash, if you're a big sci-fi fan, maybe you've heard of him. Anyways, yeah, so check that out coming up probably next week. We might start dropping that. And, I won't belabor it too much, but I'm pretty excited about that. It will not be quite the same tone as we had on Jerusalem, but I will say no more. You can hear more of that later and do all the things that all the other podcasts want you to do. If you're not as much in books, again, I would implore you to go to the Patreon at patreon.com/kickersofels. And even if you don't care about Alan Moore or reading big, long books, we talk about like TV shows and everything else that we might be up to, other books we might be reading. And, if you like the show and you want to support us, whether you're a Star Trek fan or not, especially not, man, honestly, if we've got a lot of stuff that on the Patreon that you might like, and that's my pitch, and for all the other stuff I'm doing. And again, thanks for listening. I love you very much. I hope that didn't come off too weird. And goodbye. Oh, and you can give us a call too at 917-408-3898. But all right, I've said enough. One to blast off, beam out, or the end. Goodbye.
You can turn this off now. It's pretty pathetic that you are still listening. Do you not have friends, or a hobby that is not Star Trek podcast related? That is possibly why people are fearful for the future of our society. We believe in you. We know you are better than this.